Well, welcome and hello everyone to round two of the Simufur F1 Championship. Today it is currently just myself with possibly anyone else jumping in as we load into our practice session. It should be a good race today. I believe we have 13 of our members, a little short on the field with some conventions going on and a couple other events pulling some people away. Jump into things, trying to sort out possibly getting someone secondary in here, but I think that's gonna be we are what we have now. We're gonna be running things. Double check that we have everything correct. We're gonna jump into hopefully a rather chill practice session. But who knows? After watching this previous race, it's going to be at Bahrain. It's going to be rather interesting. But hello, Kaiju. Welcome in. Glad to have you here. I need to just check one more thing really quick. Just correct our description, because that is. I do not have the right stuff up. There we go. And like that, we should be good to go. Apologies for a little bit of disorganization. And we already have the car spun around on the exit of, I believe that is turn 2 as we jump into things. Fane, the unfortunate victim of that wheel spin. Like I mentioned, we have quite a few drivers coming in here, but quite a few missing as well, as it looks like Kaiju and Newland are going to be their own drivers for McLaren and Aston Martin respectively, as well as Shrek, I believe, flying the flag alone for Williams, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I am wrong there. And Shadow additionally flying the flag alone for Red Bull. So a couple teams here that we're going to be short on numbers. I'm not sure if they're going to remain here. We should have everyone by the end of this. But this will be a rather eventful session. Just to recap our practice schedule, we will be running the first 30 minutes of this practice, and then all of our drivers are going to retire after our 30 minutes have passed. We aren't going to be having a full hour session. It's just going to be 30 minutes, and then we're going to be jumping into the qualifying. Make this a nice round 2-hour broadcast, and out things, making things go a little bit faster and things out here. Here we have Kaiju. Kaiju had a eventful race at Bahrain. If I remember correctly, retiring from qualifying was not their best performance, and then unfortunately in the same corner later in the race, they had the same fate coming into the same corner in the race, and I believe caused them to take some front wing damage, a couple penalties as well from off tracks, and then later speeding in the pits penalties. So Kaiju, definitely a driver trying to make a charge and kind of bring back their points after the last race. Nonetheless, and jumping over now, we're going to move over to Leggy as well. Leggy is another driver that had an unfortunate race last weekend out. It unfortunate safety car restart that turned Leggy around from, I believe, a P5 position. So he was running quite strong and unfortunately was caught up with the slow safety car restart that was also caught out Azzy, and I believe it was that Sergal who was the Alpine driver missing from today. Oh, no, I believe it was Shirex, if I'm not mistaken. One of the two. I think Sergal's in the McLaren, so Shirex, P1 driver. As we see lap times start coming around, Shirex was the fastest time of a 1 minute 43.35. Good representation of pace coming in here, but I know some of these drivers are going to be looking around the 1 minute 40 mark once we come to qualifying and later on in the session. Once we get all those ERS modes cranked up, Leggy setting a 1 minute 46, so perhaps not the cleanest lap of Leggy. Also on the hard compound tires, Newland finishing just behind that. Going to be shadow slotting in between Shirex and Tricky as well. At only 2/10 adrift off of Tricky, and looks like we have lost Fane. I'm not quite sure what happened there. That's going to be a real big problem for Fane coming into this race, because I'm not mistaken, they were not well practiced coming to this race, as we see Shirex getting a little bit of contact with the wall, but a lot of commitment coming up that castle section. A section that I fully expect to be very dangerous coming through into the race. Lap 1 especially, when we're going to have all the cars bunched together, all it's going to take is a millimeter too far to one side or the other, and you can result in the wall, as well as many other cars that are fully committed up that section piling in behind you. And we're going to jump in, cover some other drivers. Jump over to Azzy here, who just set the fastest time of the practice session not too long ago. Very, very important session for them to recover after they had that safety car incident. They were also penalized for some contact that occurred as part of that, but nonetheless, they're moving into this race after recovering a P5 from that race. So we're going to be looking very intensely at Azzy's. They've shown their pace to be extremely strong coming through both Baku and Bahrain, so we're really going to be watching for them. They're definitely one of my favorites to take the race, especially with Danny and Paula not here to take that crown away from them. Like I said, again, anyone that has joined in, it's going to be quite a few cars that are missing. 7 drivers that are missing from this race. We'll go through the list of drivers in just a moment that we are missing. It is going to be... Let's see. It is going to be... Danny is going to unfortunately miss the race. Sarah Orkvech will unfortunately be missing. Paula and Blade. Tara, Donk, and Tricky, as well as Sergal. Unfortunately, all missing round 2. It seems like the majority of the drivers will be making it for the rest of the races throughout the season. But unfortunately, this is just going to be a one-off event where many people are going to be committed. And unfortunately, that it is a very tight weekend on scheduling, even on my own part. So certainly can understand many of these drivers being unable to make the season. Tricky coming into the pits, unfortunately not going for another fastest lap, as we're going to jump in. Not Shadow. We lost Taylor earlier as well, so possibly an incident from them, but I'm not 100% sure. We're going to follow Otto here for the lap, try to get a feel for what they are feeling out on track. It's going to be a little bit of traction wiggling around the rear end of that Alpha Tauri. Not the cleanest thing that I've seen, but Otto seemingly able to put it together. The front end's complying quite well, as he's going to pop in and set a 141.7 on the hard compound tires certainly stamping their authority early in this practice session, trying to get that psychological advantage over some of the drivers, especially once they see that hard compound tire certainly has to have been done with a higher ERS mode, either that or low fuel. But a very strong lap indeed coming in from Azzy. Otto's going to be the rest of this track. Still struggling under traction as we squeeze that throttle. It's going to be cars just complaining, the rear end trying to move about, but good compliance from the front end of that Alpha Tauri there. And it's going to be coming to the final corner. Very important corner. Want to set up that exit very well. A little bit off the apex, but able to get the power down nice and early as we have yellow flag in sector 2. Unsure who that is. Going to be Otto making that final run. DRS board coming up in pit, and on the steering wheel you can see 2 lights popping up on the right hand side. That means that rear DRS flap is open. Otto is going to be setting a 1 minute 42.3 on that hard compound tire. A respectable time for sure, and certainly not one to kind of be overlooked. We're going to be jumping into Alpha, putting together the... Oh, I have programs opening up for me. Thank God it is practice. This is definitely not my computer's fault. Alpha probably coming into the pits here, I imagine. That slow entry into the S's, I couldn't imagine that they're trying to go for a fast lap. And yeah, they're hanging over onto the left-hand side of the track, so that's exactly what it's going to be. And jumping back on with Shirex, who is fully committed in that Alpine. Full speed ahead, late on the brakes, get the weight on the front axle, a little bit of curb and maybe a light tap of the wall. It's going to be a little bit of light contact, picking up the power quite nicely, met that apex of Shirex as well. It's going to be a good run the straight, hopefully gaining time down this entire straightaway. Shirex trying to charge ahead to challenge Azzy's time. Looks like it possibly is going to be a 3-horse race between Shirex, Otto, and Azzy. But again, anything can change. This is Baku, remember, the home of chaos, the crown of debauchery. I'm not quite sure. But it is going to be a long race for sure. Shirex unable to improve on that time as Kaiju is going to be pulling over to the left-hand side of the road, getting out of Shirex's way as they push on. Oh, flag out in sector 1. Nothing seems to have come of it. Maybe just an off-track or a lockup. Nothing too major. We're just continuing to watch Shirex here, trying to push straight on. Look at the left-right-hand chicane. A very deceptive set of corners there. Now, left-hand apex is extremely late as you really want to set up that right-hander and that exit going down to turn 7, and then we jump into the turn 8 here. Maybe a little wide, possibly a little bit of contact from Shirex, but nothing seems to have come of it. No damage, not to be seen at least. Shirex is going to be able to continue to push through here as we get the nice overhead view of the Azerbaijan streets. It's going to be Shirex pushing the absolute limits of this Baku City circuit, and Shadow is going to be putting in a fastest time of 141.669, but it must be mentioned they are on the medium compound tires. It is not going to be a direct comparison with Azzy, as that was done on the hard compound tires, but we do not know what engine modes everyone is running in, and we do not know what fuel loads or ERS modes everyone is running in, so that can be very, very important to this race. In practice, it's going to be Shirex improving by only half a tenth. Not much to come from them. We'll jump back with Shadow and see how hard they are pushing again to this quick left, right, 5, 6 chicane. Moving over and moving on to Azzy. Not much coming in from Shadow, but another member that was not mentioned much was Newland. Newland coming off the back of a P10 last round out in Bahrain, and believe it was a one-stop strategy for them in making that long stint work for that final points paying position. A very quiet race for them, but also tense, as if I recall correctly, they were second place at the safety car restart coming into that Bahrain race, and were able to hold on and only drop a few positions to maintain that final points paying position. Many of these drivers are going to be walking out with points today, though. Just going to be a matter of how many they can bag for their championship challenge. Very, very important this week again for many of these drivers trying to challenge for the championship. And speaking of challenging for the championship, once again, going to be back on board with Azzy, who is certainly going to be challenging for that crown by the end of this 8-round season. A quick run down to turn 2, the dive inside. Nice traction hooked up, coming out of the corner. The long, painfully long straight into turn 3. Another DRS zone, a lot of overtaking likely to be seen here. Tight turn of 3, good bit of trail braking into 4, a quick little flick again, using all that space on the outside. A little bit left out there for Azzy. He's going to use all the entry here, very late apex. Yes, nice and down, low through the gears. A little bit too much curve, possibly delaying that throttle input, but preventing a good run down in the 7 here, using all the curb inside of 7 as we're going to be darting to the far right. Fully committed for 8, close to the wall, as close as you can dare. 9 for the right, 10 for the left, and good traction zone. And yes, it's going to be a quick little short shift. It's going to be able to put Azzy down the straight. Another deceptively important traction zone as you're going to be full throttle all the way into this quick left, all the way up to the wall. Close as you dare. Again, Azzy a little too committed, but maybe he's just trying to set a safe lap, because we've already seen 3 drivers retire from good laps. Azzy's going to be pushing on rather hard. Watching of that battery drain on the steering wheel, certainly pushing that overtake to try to again kind of get that psychological advantage over the rest of the drivers. There's going to be a 1:40.3. Azzy really starting to put the pressure on and build that confidence coming into the race. And speaking of pressure, the pressure is going to be on Demi, their teammate. Demi is going to be trying to recover from a race to forget last week. Or sorry, no, not Demi having a race to forget, but Demi had a strong points paying race, if I remember correctly. And it's going to be a race where they just want to haul home the points. Back to many of the drivers wanting to haul home good points for the championship. It's going to be important from the Ferrari team here, and any team that actually has 2 drivers in this race to bring home as many points as they can. So perhaps we're going to see drivers be a little bit more calm this week, as many of them have a lot to lose by messing things up. There's a lot to gain this weekend if you just keep it together. Almost a guarantee for points if you're just able to hold it with the top group and run things through. But we will see coming into the race again in the 13 cars. Demi making the charge down to turn 1, improving to a 1:42.4 on those medium compound tires. Perhaps not using all of their energy and just doing a race sim and getting comfortable with the track again, because Demi was one of those drivers that was pushing for the top of the timesheets last time out in Bahrain, and certainly will be another contender for my list of cars to watch out for the win this week. Nice and tight to the apex. Demi getting real close to that curb, or perhaps just staying off of it enough to prevent a little bit of an unsettled chassis, and I think they were able to get it out, but it looks like we were struggling a little bit through traction coming through 6, down into 7, all that curb inside. One more time through the heavily committed turn 8 castle section, and all of the room on the left used, kept nice and tight by Demi. Traction a little bit wide on Demi. Not going to be their best lap with that squirrely moment, as Kaiju is a driver that has popped to the top. It looks like they're on the soft compound tires, so maybe going for a quali sim here. A very strong pace shown from Kaiju, regardless of it being soft tires or not. as he still does hold that 1 minute 40.9, even though with medium tires compared to Kaiju's softs. But Kaiju's still showing that they can put themselves up there with the rest of these drivers. So it's a surprise coming in from them. A circuit that should be suiting their strengths quite well. I believe that Kai is on a pad, which should mean that this is going to be a stronger circuit for them. It's going to be a lot of 90 corners, which does favor those a little bit. That half pads, it's just going to be a matter of if they can get their trail braking correct. But Shurex is going to be the next driver in the 1 minute 40s with a 1 minute 40.3 on an equal set of tires as Azzy. So this could be a quite fair comparison between the two drivers, Alpine and Ferrari. A rivalry never heard of, but two classic brands certainly trying to duke it out in the not so classic track, but the classic chaos of the Baku City Street Circuit. Come back on board with Leggy, who is quietly doing laps through track, still on the hard compound tires, not really looking to push the car too hard, it seems. We had a little lock up there into turn 3. You see it together nicely to turn 4, and Otto is going to be popping in the fastest lap of the session so far with a 1 minute 39.5, the first driver to break into those 39s. Quite impressive coming in, as we're going to see in these last 10 minutes quite a few drivers popping in for quali sims. It's not going to be in case of race sims anymore, like we see Leggy on with a little bit of oversteer going up that castle section. A scary moment and a scary place to get it, but keeping it together quite nice, and still could be on for a good lap here. Leggy's going to be going for the dive down into turn. I have actually lost count of how many turns there are on this track. Classic Crofty moment. But Leggy trying to piece together that final few corners. We go through the fast left-right chicane. The final corners on track. An F1 car doesn't even blink at these. It's just full throttle, full downforce, and all the ways down the long straight DRS in the last half of it. Is Leggy going to be able to improve? Yes, to a 1 minute 44.3, a respectable time, putting them right at the back of this top 10 group. Less than, actually about 15 thousandths of a second off of Tricky. Not too far adrift from the P7 and P8 cars of Milan and Alpha. So, very, very intense session as we're going to jump on board with Otto, who's already set the fastest lap of the session. Oh, and they're going to be jumping into the pits. Rather dangerous pit entry, I might tack on, as it is a quick left-right chicane at high speed. It's very similar to almost the castle section in its danger, as it could easily catch someone out by just being a couple of meters too far left or right. But that could be a very big turning point in the race, especially if the leaders that they're going to be pushing very hard, as we're jumping on board with an expected leader here in Azzy, as they are charging down the main straight, possibly going in for a glory run, as Azzy has strapped on those soft boots. Going to be hard down on the brakes as we jump in for this qualifying sim from Azzy. Yellow flag in Sector 1, unfamiliar with what that might be. Possibly Azzy just blowing the tires off these things, and maybe they think that they're just too fast. Not quite sure. Marshall's just a little bit scared of that flaming hot Ferrari, and a little shallow into turn 3. Putting together turn 4 quite nicely, getting the power down, squeezing that throttle, all of the entry of 5. Deep into 6, quite tight to the wall, opening it up, keeping away from those curves, and yes, aiding traction quite well. And now the highly committed turn 7 and 8, using all that curb, not too early, don't get a track cut. Then you tuck it in, throw it over the right-hand side and toss it into the left-hand side, a little bit tentative on entry. As you through 9 and 10, get the traction down, short shift up the gears, trying to aid that traction, and it's full throttle all the way to the downhill left of turn 13. As we come down the hill, pushing in, and it's going to be a hard flick to the left. Still very little tentative from Azzy, trying to keep it out of the walls in the final 6 minutes of the session here, but piecing together that final corner using all the runoff over the curb. Certainly going to be a strong effort into the final chicane here. Just bleed off as little speed as possible, almost no steering angle. It's all about getting as close to those walls as you dare to keep that speed as high as possible. DRS open on the rear of that Ferrari, straight line through the straightest possible route. It's going to be a 1 minute 39 from Azzy, unable to match the pace of Otto previous to them. It's going to be 3/10, about a little over 3/10 that separate the AlphaTauri and Ferrari drivers. Jumping in with Kaiju, who has gone out for their glory runs. She is going to be pushing hard tight to the walls, keeping it as smooth as possible, as smooth as you can on the pad. She's going to be charging down, hugging that wall, opening up for the highest possible top speed, coming in, hugging the right-hand side, deep into turn one, hard on the brakes. A little bit of curb used on the inside, but Kaiju being able to make it work. Deep on the brakes into, and a little too deep and into the wall. Possibly some damage caused to the front wing there. Luckily, front wing, not too important on Baku. Just the drag that you're going to lose by having a damaged wing is what's going to come into effect. A lot of medium and low speed corners here. Only the chicane where you'll really lose out in that high speed grip is Kaiju doesn't seem to have the compliance on the front end of that McLaren. I could imagine we have a little bit of a damaged front wing. Doesn't look like we do, and it's going to be Dags that retires from this session. Dags in the Mercedes, who hadn't had time to jump into yet, unfortunately knocked out of this session before we can get to the end of our 30 minutes. Jumping back into that 30-minute comment, we have 4 minutes left in this practice session before we jump into qualifying. And that qualifying session is, again, going to be a short 15-minute qualifying session, as Sirex seems to be doing a qualifying sim with a 139.4. But Kaiju jumping that curb all over the inside, getting the car pieced together quite nicely through that final corner. A little bit of curb on the inside, but going to be the quick dash for Cash for Kaiju. You see the small barrier dividing the straights of turn 5, or turn 6 to 7, and the final straight. Kaiju pushing hard to find an improvement, and it is going to be no improvement from Kaiju. So perhaps just getting a feeling for the start of the race, putting on high fuel, and trying to drive the car out. Maybe understand how this car is going to react, as it's going to be a lot about survival. So if you can keep yourself in one piece, that's going to benefit you hugely coming into this race. Remember, we've already had a series of 4 drivers retire from incidents just in practice. So going to be a lot of missed practice from these guys, and a lot of confidence and ego that's going to take a hit from these incidents. But we're going to jump on board with Demi, a driver we haven't seen much of for a little bit. It appears they are going to be going for their glory run, and of course they're going into the pits. Go figure, why do I even try? Jumping into a driver we haven't seen much before, Alpha Wolf, who, if I remember correctly, was not there for our season opener in Bahrain. I could be mistaken. Anyone, feel free to correct me if I am wrong there. I'm going to roll with that. This is their debut event, and what a track to do it at. Is going to be a test of their mettle for sure. And they're right in the hunt for those point-standing positions with Dags, Tricky, Leggy, and themselves all trying to vie for those final top 10 positions coming into the race, all around the similar pace, but unsure of who is going to meet those. We move into the final 2 minutes. Many of our drivers are going to be starting their final qualifying laps, as it's a 101-second lap average for most of these drivers, it seems. So we're going to be moving in. I believe Alpha is going to be the last driver to take a lap. No, Alpha's going to go in and retire from the session. And We're going to see retirements start popping up these screens. None of these drivers that are going to be retiring now are likely going to be from incidents. It's going to be most of these drivers retiring, so we can end and have a 30-minute practice session as opposed to the full hour-long practice session. But as we see Tricky start running around, trying to squeeze in, I believe, their last lap. They're on an out lap. Them and Otto are the only cars on track. And yes, indeed, they are the only cars on track. Otto starting their first flying lap. Jump on board with them as it looks like possibly they're going for a glory lap on the medium. See that qualifying pace on that tire. A little bit of a lockup coming into turn 3. Nicely put together in 4. Good traction coming out of the corner, perhaps why Otto has been fighting for that top 2 position in practice. Good bit of traction, even on the curbs coming out of 5. But a lot to be gained. Jump in with Tricky as they start their flying lap. And a little bit of oversteer coming in from the Williams driver as Leggy comes in to retire the car. Ooh, and a big slide from Otto. Tokyo drifted through the corners. Certainly not going to be beneficial to the lap time or to their tire life. Looks like they're going to be able to put together the rest of the lap quite nicely as they get nice and tight up to the wall using all that outside. No curb on the inside. Well chosen. Going to be a quick run down the straight. Going to be just Tricky and Otto falling through that final chicane. Down the final back straight. Otto is going to be able to retire the car into the pit lane. Why? Tricky, our final car running out on track, the Williams driver. Trying to pump in a final qualifying sim lap as we get nice and close to the Williams, and Owen, he's in the wall. Oh, I'm not quite sure if that's going to cause any damage. It looks like the side of the car is still fine. Possibly just a little bit of a scare, but a little bit of oversteer coming into that final real corner for these cars. Nice and tight up to the wall. Tricky has had a couple scares in the final qualifying run that they have put in here. But are they able to improve from a 1:44.3? It is going to be no improvement from Tricky. Not a big surprise seeing the contact with the wall and the oversteer coming out of the final corner. But I digress as we finally move into our qualifying session. All drivers are done with their practice, and it's going to be, I believe it was Sergel who took the honors of P1 in that practice session. The start of something chaotic? Possibly. The start of something fun? Of course. It's going to be Truex, followed by Otto, Azzy, Demi, Kaiju, Shadow, Leggy, Newland, Dags, and Alpha filling out that top 10. Quickly chased by Tricky and Taylor. You were not able, or Tricky trying to finish that final flying lap, unable to put it together, and Taylor, I believe, retiring quite early, so not getting much practice, and Fain, who had failed to set a practice time. I believe they had an incident in the pit lane, I was told, that caused them to retire out from that practice session. Fortunately, that doesn't transfer over to any of the meaningful sessions as we move into qualifying. Qualifying going to be rather important coming into this race, as it is a very short run into turn 1, and that's where you're going to enter a one-line corner, narrowing it out to 1 or 2 lines. And is that perhaps some rain? Yes, that is indeed some rain for qualifying, and we are set to go. Oh my, my attention is drawn to the screen, and I am ready to go, as it is going to be Leggy, the first car to danger out on the track, or venture out on the track. The danger of the wet weather, as we see those beautiful green striped intermediate weather tires, followed by, I believe, Shadow in the Red Bull. But all eyes are going to be on Leggy. The intermediate tire, is it wet enough for the full wets? I don't believe so, but it is certainly weather for these treaded tires. No slicks today, except for the slippery stuff that's going to be on the road. It's going to be a test of many of these drivers' skill. Heavy braking zones with a lot of trail braking. Very easy to lose the corner, or the car in the corner. Lock a tire or lose the rear. Not quite sure, but we shall see. Going to be a couple more of these drivers venturing out on track again. And we have Otto. He's going to be out in the Alpha Tauri. It looks like Dags has not left. Oh, we have Leggy and Shadow into the wall, into the castle section. Oh, no. Leggy's still unable to get the car turned around. Oh, is Shadow have any damage from that collision with the wall? Yes, it looks like their end plate is gone. So they're not going to be able to set the first representative laps of this session. I believe that honor is going to go to Otto. And oh, this Baku street circuit is certainly going to test these drivers. It is already testing them on the outlap. And Otto squirrely as Shadow lets them by. Oh boy, oh boy. And we thought Baku had given us enough with just being a chaotic street circuit, but certainly the wet weather is going to give us the chaos some more. Jumping into Otto as we're going to move on board for the first-hand perspective of how this Baku street circuit looks in the wet. Breaking down from about the 100-meter board, locking into turn 1 and trying to get that traction down, struggling, a lot of wiggling, breaking it around the 100-meter board, still getting a little bit of locking, but pull the nose of the car into the corner, just manage that slip on the exit of the corner. And man, oh man, you gotta think to yourself, where am I gonna brake for turn 3? About 120 meters, locking up again. Otto not quite comfortable with these intermediate tires. 50-meter board, getting the car complied, turn into the corner, and just struggling. It looks like an ice skating rink. Azerbaijan, no for a low grip surface, but this is just ridiculous. We come out of turn 6, the quick little run to turn 7, wheel spin all the way under the gantry, tucking the corner quite tight up to the apex, maybe risking a track cut there, but Otto seems to have been able to put things together. Tight into the castle section, all the way up to the wall. Otto being able to keep it nice and clean, tucking it in the hard traction zone of 10. Able to squeeze the throttle light enough as we move through the full throttle. 11. Oh, and into the wall goes Otto. 12. And deep into the 13. Double lockup from Otto. This track really testing their mettle. We run quickly to the final true corner. A little bit deep. That's going to hurt on the exit, and surely that's going to be an off track for Otto. We will see coming into the final corner here, but the full throttle chicane left and then throw it to the right. Power out. The first time is going to be set by Otto, but what's it going to be? Whoa, boy. A few seconds off, but those few seconds is going to be a 1 minute 53.4. The time to beat from everyone else. Kaiju and Newland on their laps. Newland coming out is strict. Azzy going to be able to set the next fastest lap. So we believe we're going to jump in with, hop in with a driver we haven't been on with. Nope, Dags has not set their lap yet. Nope, we're going to jump in with Fane, someone we haven't seen yet in this qualifying session, or even practice session for that matter. They quietly retired early on. So we jump on board, or jump on with the number 2 Haas car. And we on that charge down the main straight. That minimum downforce package of the Baku circuit really testing these drivers. Similar conditions to what you would see in Spa, where you want low downforce and high downforce at the same time. That long straight really forcing you to trim out the car, which is going to make these wet conditions even more treacherous. It's a little conservative coming into turn 1, but Fane opting to just get a time down, go a little deep into turn 2, struggling to get that car complying with us. But again, these wet conditions, all gonna be about survival as we charge in the turn 3. Able to get the car nicely put together through 3, a little bit more exit on the 4, but plenty of time to set a better lap in the rear end, coming around a little bit for Fane, but jumping into some of our other cars. We also have Shadow has yet to set a lap. And Leggy as well on their out lap, coming in after that previous scuffle into the castle section. But it looks like it is just going to be Fane and Shadow on their flying laps at the moment. Ooh, a scary little wobble into the castle section. Not much room to catch it there. A good save from Fane, and ooh, the rear end's going all around. Fane doing well to catch that, but the survival instinct certainly kicking in to try to keep that Haas out of the wall. The full throttle sections of 11 and 13, hard under the brakes into 13. And Shadow's going to be the car to retire. Is that possibly going to be going into the castle section? I'm not quite sure that we can catch that anymore. We're going to jump back in with Leggy, as Leggy's going to start his first flying lap after the incident of the castle section. That's certainly going to hurt confidence a little bit deep into turn one. These wet conditions proving to be very dangerous, and yellow flag in sector 3 doesn't appear to be caused by Fane, so likely to be we can forget about that. Not too important. Perhaps Shirex is going to be making the dive down into the final straight. Is it going to be a faster time from Shirex? The first lap of their session. It is going to be a 1 minute 52.497 from Shirex, putting them in P2. You can see many of these drivers, Fane only able to set a 2-minute 3 with many of those scares on their lap, but you can see it still puts them P6. Survival is the name of the game on this circuit. It was going to be true for the race, but it's proving to be true for qualifying. We see drivers like Shadow having already retired, a driver that we would have expected to be in the top half of the grid for sure, but the castle section, it seems, was what caught them out, as it had done earlier in the session. Alpha trying to steam through the final section, but it's going to be Leggy trying to piece together final corners. Good compliance, good front end from that Alfa Romeo 23 car, going for the final dart, dashing hard left, throwing it, tossing that weight all the ways to the left-hand side as you move to the right. And it is going to be Leggy on that final straight. Nothing you can do now but sit and wait, What's my time going to be? You can only hope that it is going to put you P1, but it's going to put Leggy P5. 56.888 for Leggy, but strongly into the midfield, as Leggy's looks like he might be going for a secondary lap. We won't be using much ERS in these wet conditions, that is for sure. Tricky on his out lap, finally starting that lap in the Williams, getting the car tucked in. Nice. Well, into turn one. Going to be a late turn in for 2, and going to get that traction down quite nicely. A light tap with the wall, shouldn't be much, just a little bit of paint traded. This quickly over to that turn 3, braking down hard, trying to avoid those lockups, and yes, we're going to be able to avoid any lockup coming in. Moving over to turn 4, darting, it's going to be another well pieced together corner. Tricky on for a strong lap. Certainly wanted to check back on. The people we want to check into are going to be... Sorry. We're going to be trying to jump in with one of these other drivers near the end of their lap, but it looks like it's just going to be Tricky, the furthest advanced on track. Yes, I believe so. Tricky diving into that castle section. So ever so tight. Lane up to turn 10, 11 and 12, and corners we have already seen catch out the likes of Otto in the rear end, moving around on Tricky, perhaps keeping that low downforce set up for the race. Oh, and a little bit too much curve. Tricky able to still bring it back together, coming into this final corner. Again, the last corner that matters in these F1 cars, driving it out, and gonna be nice and put together on that apex curbing. Has Tricky done enough? moving. Oh, and a quick little wobble. I'm not quite sure if Tricky was able to collect that or if they tapped the wall. It looks like they might have been able to collect it. No damage left on that Williams car. So perhaps just a small little graze coming in from the Williams. And yes, a 1 minute 56.4 battling Leggy for that P5 position. But the driver battling for position is going to be Azzy. Azzy has just been overtaken by Shirex, who just set a 1 minute 51.6. Azzy's surely going to have seen that. Going to be have blood in the water, as that is going to be a time that or a position that they wish to reclaim. Hugging it tight, coming through these final corners. It is going to be good traction coming out of 10. Perhaps 11 and 12. Could we get a little bobble like we did before? No, very well committed from Azzy. They're going to get it quite nice and tucked in, and yes, very good compliance from that Ferrari. It's going to be the final couple of corners, getting it tucked in, power out, good traction coming out of the corner, but is there going to be a bobble coming through the final chicane here? We've seen it happen so many times before. Don't get complacent, the lap isn't over, and yes, nice and all the way out to the wall as he's going to be charging in for those final few positions. The final few hundredths of a second, straight lining to the left-hand side of the track as he is going to be able to pump it a 151.3. A stonking lap from the Ferrari driver. Maybe could be answered by Otto here, who was struggling earlier. A lot of time left on the table. Remember, last time we were on board with them, they had a lot of locking issues. This car might be very well set up for the rain. They just need to prevent that locking and excess slip coming through this car. But we are going to find out. Turn 13 and 14 to go. Nice and close to the wall. Otto using everything that is available to him. And it's going to be final thrash into turn 14 complex. Once again, it's not over yet. This wet weather has thrown a spanner in the works, and they could run out of grip, and no, Otto is kept. Oh no, Otto is in the wall. The end plate on that Alpha Tauri is completely gone. That's certainly gonna wreck Otto's lap, and yes, they're coming into the pits as one would do. Oh, a very disheartening moment for that Alpha Tauri driver if they were on a good lap. But it's going to be Taylor that we jump onto. Settled down into P7 in a direct battle with Newland, who is actually immediately behind them and not far off of Leggy, who's immediately in front of them by only 2.5 tenths of a second. So not an insurmountable gap, as many of these drivers seem to have settled around the 156 mark, with our top four that have kind of detached themselves. Demi trying to find a little bit more time, but those wet weather conditions don't seem to be working out for them. Taylor is going to be trying to piece together once more into 13. Good compliance from that Alpha Tauri, looking just like Otto's. Jump into 13. 14 perhaps a little deep, but the traction is good. Taylor looking to improve to the top of this midfield battle. P5 is on the cards for them, very tight to that final corner in the chicane. It is going to be a straight line as Newland retires behind, perhaps getting caught out by that exact chicane. This is what I mean by many of these drivers can't get complacent in that high-speed section. And yes, Taylor is going to be able to steal that P5 with a 155.2, putting them 1 full second adrift of Tricky, who's not been able to match. But jumping in, it is going to be Sirex and Demi jumping into their final couple of laps. Demi in turn 4, Sirex in turn 5, now 6. These two drivers are going to be one after another, trying to beat everything out of these cars. What more can they do? What more time is on the table? We know at least 3 seconds or 3 tenths is possible with these with these conditions. But can Shirex prep the tires? Can Demi prep the tires? And speaking of prepping the tires, Shirex is doing exactly that. Trying to get the temperature into those tires, burn off that water as it gets into the channels in the rubber of those intermediate compound tires, get that last little bit of heat in them. Azerbaijan, remember, low grip circuit, just as important as Bahrain last time out to get those tires properly prepped. Not a very cold tire, especially in these cold weather conditions, is going to mean nothing in terms of grip. But jumping in with Sirex, trying to piece together that lap, and Sirex possibly with a little bit of a graze on the wall. Looks like they're going to be able to hold it together as Leggy's going to be able to sneak into the 153s after Taylor retired and Kaiju retiring as well, perhaps not even able to set a lap. So these wet conditions still proving tricky even after almost 15 minutes of qualifying, but Sirex on their final flying lap. Oh, struggling for traction because Sirex unable to get the rear end to listen to them as they push that through. But it's going to be turn 3 lockup, double lockup, all the way across turn 3. The braking zone unable to comply. It's turn 4. That Alpine just looks so on edge and not ready for these wet weather conditions. It's amazing that Sirex is able to even pull this up to P2, just touting how much talent they have as a driver being able to put this all together. But the double lockups, yes, it almost looks like the front grip just isn't there in that Alpine. Nonetheless, you have what you have, and you need to do what you can. It's going to be nice and tight. The weight transfer moving that Alpine around. The final section of corners, 11 and 12, caught out plenty of drivers so far today, but no trouble for Sirex as he comes to make this day. A little bit of curve coming into 13, but 14, most important traction zone. Don't spin your tires here. Otherwise, you will have ruined your year, and it's going to be good traction coming out of the final corner. Auto looks like they're going to maintain where they are, unable to finish, or unable to start a new lap. Sirex driving hard down the straight, but what are they going to be able to do? It is going to be the final couple of meters charging in, and it's going to be pole position currently. Provisional pole for Sirex, but Demi still can steal it. Demi only able to improve to 153.0, and it's going to be Azzy late on the lap. Tricky charging in. What's it going to be? Tricky? Is he able to improve? It's going to be a 155.3, but no position gain. Fane down with the 157s. No, they have retired from the session. So it is going to just be Dags who's able to set a 152.7 on their one and only lap, but only one driver left to go. Azzy Iredell, are they able to put together the lap to bring home the pole? Only 5 or 6 hundredths of a second to be found for that pole position. Any improvement will do, but the wheel spin coming out. 11 and oh no, it's going to be hard into the wall. No, Azzy retiring from the session. Oh, that 11 and 12 complex. We talked about it so many times before, but unfortunately, Azzy's going to be stuck on the floor of the car, bottomed out with the front left torn to shreds. Oh no, that is certainly going to shake the confidence of the Ferrari driver. And oh no, but Sirex able to bring together that lap for pole position, but oh dear, you know Azzy's going to be rather upset with that. Oh boy, that was the lap for Azzy to put it together. That was their time for glory. The final driver, the pole position at the bell, but unfortunately it was not meant to be. The rear end, sadly not wanting to stick, but those were those wet weather conditions. You take what you can, you push the car too hard, and unfortunately that's what happened to Azzy. The wet weather was not willing to work with them for those wet weather conditions, and maybe in the race we'll see the benefit of, or reap the benefit of their labors, but certainly that's got to shake their confidence. I know it is wet now and you can lean on the car a lot more, trust that mechanical grip, but it is certainly confidence harming at the least. The ego crushing, soul crushing, many words, many superlatives, many adjectives, and things I could not say. The thesaurus has not reached my mind, but unfortunately as he was unable to finish that lap. And yes, I can appreciate that the stream is looking much better now that we have a moment to take as we start the red lights for our formation laps. Shurex leading the way as we recap the rest of the grid. It is going to be Azzy in P2, and then followed by Otto, Dags, who was able to sneak in a last-second glory lap, Demi, Leggy with a strong qualifying lap for them, as well as Taylor, Tricky, Newland, and Fane, who minimal practice, able to put themselves in the top 10, just showing how important getting a lap in during those tricky qualifying conditions were. Alpha, Shadow, and Kaiju trying to finish up those last few positions, but not quite sure if it was just the conditions or if that is their pace. And it would be interesting to see. Kaiju had good pace in practice, so did Shadow, so plenty of things to come. But moved through is going to be, it appears, Shurex on the mediums. Many of these drivers likely to stay on the mediums. Possibly we'll see another driver step onto the hards, but unlikely. Many of these drivers, or actually all of these drivers, have free choice. So unfortunately, P11 through 13 right now do not have the benefit of free tire choice over the other cars because it was a wet weather qualifying session. So it is likely going to be a one-stop race in the end. These tires in the tire strategy not going to be very important, as perhaps we'll see some of those drivers jump to a two-stop race, as the rear end tires of these cars are going to be screaming by the end of it all, but not as abrasive as Bahrain, just low grip. See, we have an hour and a bit to see 26 laps of the Baku City Circuit. Baku Street Circuit. And be Shurex leading down that final straight, weaving hard for all of that tire heat coming in. And yes, you can see the conga line of cars in the background, weaving side to side, looking almost like a wild party festival night gone right. But the parties stop now as we see the Haas, the Williams, the Merc, or sorry, not the Merc, the McLaren, and the Red Bull start to bring up the rear of the grid as we see the final two cars take their positions in the grid as everyone locks their eyes onto the 5 red lights. And speaking of, here they go, 5 red lights, and away we go. Shurex with a strong start, and it's going to be a good start in the back end of the grid. 2 wide going into 1. It's going to be Otto and Dags. 3 wide, possibly coming into 2. Dags coming up, taking P3, followed by Demi. Otto dropping all the ways down to the 5, and then hard into the wall. Taylor going hard in with Leggy as well. Chaos already has started, and we haven't even gotten to the castle. But we have to return back as Shurex can be under pressure from Azzy. Azzy's trying to close the gap. There's a little bit of a wheel spin coming in from Demi, trying to get challenged from Otto. And still trying to get that car back in. Going to be following in 5 cars leading the way going into turn 6. And they have led astray as we're going to be jumping back with Kaiju and Alpha. Kai able to sneak around. Remember that early pace that we saw all the ways up from P13 into P7. We lead into the castle section. Azzy able to come through clean. Otto following in, maybe a little bit of a tap into the wall. It's going to be the chaos in the castle. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All the cars make it through. That's for sure, but we have a retirement early from Newland. Able to keep it all together. But my oh my, what a chaotic turn 2. We'll have to see what happened to that post-race. But an unfortunate incident for sure. We jump into Kai, trying to chase down Taylor, using that superior soft tire grip. Didn't say many cars would be starting on this tire, but Kai has done it, and done it miraculously all the way up into P6, charging through the field. But quite a gap to go. 7 seconds to the cars ahead, led by that incident. But Alpha being charged by Fane. Fane with the straight line speed and the slipstream. It's going to be Alpha going deep into the pits, unable to keep that front wing alive for the race. Having to stop for that early pit stop, certainly going to be struggling with that front wing damage. So elects to come in, but it's going to be Otto and Azzy charging in the top 5. The gap's under 1 second. Remember that 1 second gap is extremely important, especially here at Baku, where we're going to have multiple DRS zones. The back straight and turn 2. We're going to be able to open that rear, or from turn 2 to 3, where we can open that rear wing and get that extra speed advantage coming down through the straights and heading into each respective corner. Going to be a little bit of a tap in the wall by Otto. And here we're going to jump into the pit strategy. We're seeing those soft tires can make it on 2 stops. Predicted that the medium tires are even going to have to do 2 stops as well. Just the ending tires going to determine what they are running. So many of these drivers stronger on hard compounds are going to be able to make it a little bit of a lockup from Otto. Trying to get the car away from the wall, but it's going to be Azzy hounding Surex, going to be the long straight. That Ferrari certainly trimmed out like we saw in qualifying, and it's going to be Azzy pushing hard, trying to gain on Surex as the long straight starts, but Surex dumping their ERS to try to stay out. Azzy now deploying just to keep close, but not trying to push too hard. Now, DRS has been enabled, and it is going to be Dags actually trying to make a move on Demi. Deep into the inside, Demi able to defend in, and it's going to be the close race into turn 2. Demi a little bit slow. Dags just needing to hook it up, a little bit of wheel stim from the Ferrari, but able to get the better exit as Dags got that DRS, pushing it deep, and electing to come out. Letting Demi get that gap into turn 3, just trying to hold behind. Maybe save fuel, maybe save tires, I'm not quite sure. But followed closely is going to be Otto. You can't sit behind when you've got an Alpha Tauri pushing you from behind. Race is got plenty of laps to go, but you can't be conceding positions for free. Oh my, this top 5 spicing it up as the rest of the field try to survive. We've had a couple incidents pop on through. There's going to be Taylor dropping onto that last position in P10 as Alpha and Leggy looking like they need to take a front wing change. Yes, so it's going to be Leggy coming into the pits for a front wing change. Too much damage to that Alfa Romeo, unfortunate for him. But it's going to be Azzy once again coming into the back straight. Deep under the rear wing of Surex. That gap at 0.5 of a second. And that DRS certainly going to be worth close to that. It's going to be Azzy looking for a move, but looking under that wing mirror, unsure if Azzy's going to be able to get it. Are they going to be even into turn 1 side by side? Azzy looking around the outside and deep into turn 1. Azzy takes the lead of the race. Demi losing the position out to Dags, but trying to get the exit out. And that Demi, unable to get it, trying to elect for that DRS coming into turn 2. But the battle in front is still going on. It looks like it's starting to be sorted out. No safety cars. Safety cars come out. That's why these cars have slowed, and it looks like it is going to be for Shadow, who had an incident. Not quite sure where, possibly the castle section, looking at the majority of the gaps. But that's going to bring all these cars together. Remember, as I mentioned in practice, this race is a race of survival. Only one car now in the running will not get a points-paying position. That's going to be very crucial for many of our drivers that unfortunately couldn't make it this week. So any of these drivers that can survive the race are going to make ground up on their championship rivals. It's also going to help Taylor, Alpha, and Leggy, who were all unfortunate victims of incidents that pulled them back. So they're going to be able to pull themselves back in. Safety car sitting there on the exit of turn 2. And, oh boy, the chaos has not calmed down. That is for sure. Certainly a time to take a breather, a time to take a break, as we have watched 2 cars break on their own. Shadow and Newland unable to finish this race. Terminal damage for both of them, and leaving with their leaving empty-handed from this time. think Azzy and Shirks might go a little easy on their tires, considering this is going to be what is projected to be a two-stop race. Perhaps they're trying to squeeze in for an early pit stop, and it looks like Azzy might be doing so. Are they followed by Shirks? No. Shirks opting for track position. Dags following suit. Demi as well. Otto taking the track position. Is Kaiju going to take in? This could be a crucial moment in the race. Split strategy is going to be very important, and yes, it's going to be Kaiju diving into the pits. Perhaps we'll see a few more of these drivers, and it is a free pit stop. Perhaps going onto the hard tires, seeing how late you can go. Those hards, I don't believe are going to be able to go to the end of the race, but could allow you to get onto the softs by the end. Bane electing to go without that. Tricky diving into the pits as it looks like we have a checkerboard of decisions, one to the left and one to the right. Here we go. It's going to be the hectic races as he's coming out of those pits on those hard compound tires, as mentioned before. Dags looking to have followed suit, but onto the mediums. Demi as well. Kai having jumped onto, I believe, the mediums, and yes, they took that free pit stop as Fane was not able to jump them. So, Shirex and Otto certainly would not want to be in their shoes as they missed out on a free pit stop, and they now have Azzy, Dags, and Demi, the big contenders of this race, the big contenders of the group that they were fighting in, on fresh tires. Granted, only 4 laps younger, but on fresh tires nonetheless compared to the rest of them, and that is going to be pivotal, especially in these 50% races. Going back, we have hit 2 times square because of it being a 50% race, and that is going to wear those tires. Granted, yes, they've been on them for 4 laps, but it's the same as being on it for 8 in the real world. So that could play a pivotal moment in the role of this race. Shirex and Otto did elect to stay on their strategy, so that could be important for this race, but not quite sure if they were either caught out, thinking it was too early, not early enough to take tires, and maybe think they were going to lose too much time to risk losing to the cars behind, or if this is part of their strategy. It could go either way. Not sure how to bounce it, but it is all to play. Jumping in. And so that pit window has opened for the medium tires for the 2-stop strategy. So even more question marks added to Shirex and Otto. Perhaps they're thinking of stretching this into a 1-stop race, but I'm not sure I see the advantage of that when you have the rest of these cars with only 1 stop left to do, and they're hounding right onto the back of you. Perhaps if the field was a little bit closer and they were able to close that grid up, I could see, or put a few more cars between them, I could see it, but I'm not quite sure. It's going to be on Shirex and Otto to run away. Azzy and Dags, Demi, they're here to play, looking at those tire choices, especially the aggressive pit stop, taking that free pit stop. Kai now in a strong position, possibly able to challenge for these top 5 positions. Remember, Kai did have a lot of pace coming into the practice session, unable to set a time in qualifying, but in one lap I have to say, remember, P13 all the way up to P6 and no more. But the 17 corners that we have here at Baku. So, oh, it's going to be into the wall for Demi. Is that damage on the car? Demi losing it, trying to warm the tires. It looks like the front left end plate is gone on that Ferrari. Oh no. A demoralizing mistake from the Ferrari. Perhaps Ericsson has hit them, but oh, Ericsson is an IndyCar, so how could that possibly have happened? Oh no. A lapse in judgment maybe from the Scuderia, but oh dear, oh dear. That's gonna have Kai licking their lips, because that's gonna be a free position. Certainly no way that Demi's going to be able to hold that position after the restart, and might as well take the hit coming into the pit lane right now. Try to recover more positions for the rest of the race, as I don't believe the safety car will be coming in. it's going to be, yes, one more lap under safety car. And then, yes, Demi jumping into the pits, and oh my, what an unfortunate, oh, and a speeding in the pit lane penalty, Demi, no. Oh, the day just gets worse and worse. And there, oh, hello, it's Mechanic, how are you? Maybe looking for a cameo as Demi makes a cameo into the pits, running out. Going to be filing out into P10, so still a points paying position. They won't be losing too much, as they will be right on the back of this train, as it appears onto soft tires for Demi. A very aggressive and bold strategy for this driver. Oh boy. This could go any manner of ways. Those soft tires, very, very strong, but very, very prone to falling apart. So this is going to be the aggressive strategy that Demi is going to have to pull off. There's no doubt about it. It is unfortunately the position that they were forced into, and that is that as it sits. But back into P8, a castle section. Nightmares for Demi. Very, very smooth onto the throttle this time around. Certainly trying to avoid a repeat of what was going on. Not quite sure. Many of these drivers that were not able to make it, certainly rubbing their hands at seeing the lost points as some of their rivals. But maybe some others not so happy as they see drivers like Kaiju and Dags, the midfield drivers as well as Taylor and Fane, Tricky and Leggy, drivers that you would expect to be fighting for midfield points, looking like they are on for a strong points paying result, but not quite sure. Safety car is coming in. The pace is on Shirex for them to lead us away, and the Alpine driver is going to continue weaving, trying to get heat in their tires, and it looks like they're going to be continuing that weaving, and yes, we are away. We're now full speed as late as you can manage, but it's going to be Otto looking for a move into turn one. The Alpine on the Alpha Tauri. Is it going to be too wide in the one? No, it is not. No, yes, it is. It's going to be Azzy around the outside and not able to make it work. A little bit of Bish and Mash going on in the background. It's going to be Kaiju and Dags looking deep into turn two, but unable to make it through. And it's going to be the rest of the field. Look like they're filing through the rest of the way quite nicely. But Azzy is going to be pushing it into Otto, and now the gap is too far away. But Kaiju looking on the inside of Dags, unable to make a move stay. But trying to pull in the gaps, jumping back down the grid. We have Taylor going deep and hard into the wall. Oh no, turn four, the victim. Oh, Taylor unable to get it turned in deep, and that could possibly be another safety car, certainly a VSC for sure, as that is a very dangerous spot for a car to be sat. Yellow flag still waving sector 1 and 2, just sector 1 now as Dags is going to be driving in to Castle section, followed by Kaiju. Fame moved up into 6th, Demi already up into 7th, but unfortunately with a 5-second penalty to their name. All cars that finish now, every single one, yes, safety car again. One more time we go for the safety car. Going to unfortunately be the end of Taylor's race, and that is the end of the drivers that will not get a point this race. Every driver that is in here now will get a point for this race. All they need to do is make it to that 75%, and then they will be eligible for their points. If you retire too early, you will not get those points. It is important. That 75% rule is very important to keep in mind. Dags elected to dive into the pits. Possibly the only driver to do so. Possibly damage, I'm not quite sure. No, it's just going to be a dive onto the hard compound tires. Possibly looking to go to the end while it's a free pit stop, but it's going to be Fane. Followed by Demi. Demi trying to get off that soft rubber maybe thinking that wasn't the right plan, but also trying to get rid of this 5-second penalty as the mediums are going to be going on. Leggy inheriting a P7 from that, and it looks like it is going to be hard compound rubber from him. So, as we jump in, now we have a mix. We have drivers yet to stop. We have drivers with one more stop, and now we have drivers with none to go. Fane and Leggy looking to go to the end. Or sorry, not Fane. Dags and Leggy looking to go to the end. Fane with the soft compound rubber. Demi with the mediums. So perhaps one more stop for each of them. Demi perhaps can stretch that out, but I think that pace loss will be too dramatic. Not quite sure if they can manage it, but we have 16 more laps to go come the end of the safety car, perhaps 15, but none. The end of the day, the track is going to be taking a few more sacrifices, or looking to do so as well. Leclerc and Grosjean, many of the notable drivers to be taken out of their races or qualifying because of the tight twisting streets of Baku street circuit. And these drivers are in good company. Many of them that have retired, or any of them who have struggled. It is certain. Oh, what is that? Is Dax missing a front wing? Dax is missing a front wing. What happened to Dax? I was talking about sacrifices, but not this early, guys. I was supposed to be on the restart. Oh, it is going to certainly be Dags. Diving into the pits once more. Oh, cool! Dags! No! Dags hard into the wall! Dags thinking they had more front end grip. But no, the grip was not there. The aerodynamics, there was no air to be moved. Oh, and unfortunately, Dags unable to pull position. That is going to be heartbreaking for the Mercedes teams, who now is going to have no points coming from this race. Oh, unfortunate for sure. This is Ferrari's time to shine. If they can just bring back the race, if they can just survive, they're going to take a boatload of points home. The Williams cars as well, possibly trying to push themselves further up in that midfield. But every other team has only one driver in it. So it's up to these Williams and Ferrari's cars. They are going to be the drivers that need to bring their cars home for this Constructor Championship. Yes, we have the Drivers' Championship between Demi, Danny, Azzy, Otto, Shurex, and right now it could be Kai too, with this strong position that Kai has put themselves in. But it's unfortunate incidents, very, very clumsy incidents. Many of these drivers just need to back things off and know that they just need to survive. Unfortunately, not going to be true. So, as we move around, safety car likely coming in this lap as we look at the high-speed cameras. Seeing the speed of that Mercedes AMG GT safety car leading the F1 legends here down the circuit. And yes, I said it before, but the safety car is going to be in this lap. The safety car is going to leave the field, and Shurex once again is now taking the lead of the field, trying to lead us away, followed by Otto, then by Azzy, then by Kaiju, and then by Fane. Shurex maintaining that speed, a little bit of the Bottas strat, a little bit of a weave, keep them guessing. They can't guess when you're going, and it's going to be straight away. It's going to be Shurex getting the jump, and it's going to be Otto, followed by Azzy. No one getting a dive. What? It's going to be possibly 3 wide. No, only 2. Shurex is going in, followed by Otto on the outside. Going into turn 2, it is 2 abreast. And it is going to be Otto showing the outside again. Unable to get the move to stick, but they can get the better exit, and Otto Gonna be a wheel stand and Kai. Kai has lost the rear, dropping several positions, and Azzy taking the beneficiary position in the turn 3. P2 up for grabs. Azzy has inherited it. And it is going to be the battle for P1. Hard compounds versus worn mediums. Shirex trying to get the gap away, hoping for a little more time. But Azzy has gotten away from the grasp of Otto trying to get something back and chase them down. Jumping down the field, we still have the teammate battle of Alpha, looking like they got past Tricky, possibly faced by the spin from Kai. And many of these drivers are going to be looking sky high with their hopes and aspirations for points this race. Many holding their fates in the cusp of their hand, but many laps to go, many laps to survive as Demi has now closed back up on the auto. The long straight awaits. The long straight. Plenty of slipstream, and it's going to be Demi looking for a strong exit out. Half a second back. That energy, a little bit of a tap of the wall, certainly going to bleed off a little bit of the momentum. Sector 3 has a crash, and it looks like it's going to be Alpha with the spin. And it's not going to be a good look for them, but Kai on the back of Tricky, unable to get anything going with a tap of the wall. And it's going to be Kai charging down. On that lack of DRS, this is going to have to be done the hard way. Tricky is going to have the inside of Kai. Yes, it is going to be 2 abreast into turn 1. Kai able to get around the outside, get that exit nice and cleaned up, and drive out. And away Kai goes. Now to chase down Leggy, 3.5 seconds up the road. Demi not giving up on Otto not giving up on Azzy. Shirex able to keep that gap going with those softer compound medium tires. Azzy trying to get those hards at the temperature, but it's going to be the long game for them. And Emmy tight onto the back of Otto, coming through 6. If we make the run down in the 7, there is not but a piece of paper between these two, inseparable as we move into the chaotic castle section. All it's gonna take is one mistake. 1, 2, 3, all 3 make it through. Keeping it tight as Otto's able to stretch a gap. Otto trying to pull up to Azzy, DRS ready at the end of this lap, holding into that 4/10 window. And Azzy's going to have to burn their DRS. It possibly could be done without DRS. As Otto deep in, very close to the wall, maybe even grazing it. Yes, it looks like they dropped a little bit of time. But what matters is the final corner here. Hard onto the power. Is Otto able to get the exit? No, but Demi looks like they have. And it's going to be the quick flick left and right through the chicane. Oh, the DRS is going to be drained. And it's the gap certainly closing between the two, but Otto closing up onto P2 as he unable to hold. No, as he's going to be able to hold it into PT1, but P2 is still at the risk. P2 is still yet to come. The DRS is going to open, but it's going to be Demi looking for a late move onto the inside. Demi able to sneak that move, and yes, it's nice and clean, but the DRS open for Otto. DRS open for Demi. As it is going to be the train starting to form, the draft, the very glue that's going to hold this battle together, as Baku is going to keep this top 3 battle tight. Shirex still able to continue to pull away from Azzy, that gap unable to close up. Demi possibly even closing in on Azzy with those medium tires. Could see some team orders here where Demi's going to be able to run after P1. And whereas Azzy might play rear gunner, could be. But we'll have to see, possibly into turn 1, where Azzy won't lose any time as DRS again has now been enabled. But Otto is still in the mist, still looming over both of those scarlet cars. But if we have an incident in turn 2, or in sector 2, unable to see who that could possibly be. But the gap now between Azzy and Demi closing rapidly. No, this looks like a bad exit from Demi. Maybe even having the lift coming out of the corners. This could play into Otto's hands, but the DRS open as we fly past the main grandstands. P3 3/10 into turn 1. Azzy not trying to fight this, just electing to hold their line, but Demi wants that position. Those medium tires certainly giving more grip now. Azzy not gonna gain anything from defending against their teammate, but 3/10 is all she wrote. 3/10 is what's left in this gap. It's gonna be a little look into turn 3, but Azzy still not under threat from Demi, and Otto's trying to find some kind of gap, but unable to find anything, and it looks like we have an incident in Sector 2, unable to see maybe just a lockup coming through. But it's gonna be, once again, the battle for P2. As tucking into turn 7, the gap seems to have stabilized. Possibly Shurex's mediums are starting to wear out. Azzy's tires starting to come up. And it's going to be possibly a crossover point here in the near future. We talked about traction being an issue, and it looks like Demi had a traction issue coming out of the castle section, dropping out of Azzy's DRS range. Otto trying to fill in that gap. This could make Demi a sitting duck. It depends what Otto can do. A little bit of tap of the wall for Demi, but it looks like they are able to carry enough speed through that Otto was unable to stay in. And yes, the gap's going to open up. Both drivers losing DRS, so this is now a race of pace. There's a straight shot between one and the other. No one's getting anything back from DRS unless Otto is able to get back into the detection point. Possibly, and yes, it looks like that rear wing is open, so Otto able to sneak back into 1 second just in time. But it's going to be quite the climb for Otto to bring this back in high heights of the Baku circuit, and it looks like Tricky has retired. Possibly that, and no! Fane losing their front wing. VSC coming out to recover Tricky's car, but Fane, safety car once again for debris in turns 8, and Tricky's retirement to fall now to P8, soon to be 9, as they drop out of the race, and that is going to be for the 5th time we lose yet another driver. The sacrifices have yet to end, and oh dear, this is good. Oh, I've run out of rhymes. But we still have more time, 10 laps, 9 to 10 laps to go once the safety car comes around. Possibly in danger, but Fane needing to keep things together. And Alpha retires under safety car. What is happening in this race? Oh, we've lost so many drivers. We have lost half of the grid. 6 cars of our 13 and our small grid for this week and this week alone have been unable to finish the race. And it looks like it's both of the Williams cars even on top of that have pulled out and been unable to finish this race. It's, oh dear, what a race they could have gained points in, what it could have been for their pace, but it's unfortunate we're unable to see the end of their race. It appears Demi is going to be following through Azzy, jumping into the pits, finally making, or no, sorry, not finally making their stop, but making their second stop. A 9-lap stint on mediums, it seems quite possible. It seems like a healthy range, and Sirex has yet to stop in this race. That is the important thing to remember. Sirex has not stopped in this race. Sirex stayed out during the first, the second, and now the third. Wait, what happened to Fane? Fane's lost their front wing again. The dusty streets of Baku. Oh no. They claimed another driver in the snafu. Oh. And it looks, a double lockup for Fane, trying to just recover the car. A many point turn from the Haas car. Oh dear. A race to forget, but Fane lucky with now 3 front end impacts to be able to finish the race. Again, these drivers need to mount it down. This race is about survival. There's only 7 cars left in it. Please, guys, you only need to make it 8 or 9 more laps under pace. You can do it. I believe in you. Oh, boy. It's the F100 games. And now Fane's got a drive-through penalty. Oh, no. Oh, and the clouds just continue to darken over the skies of the Haas. Oh, and it's going to be 2 trips through the pit lane for the 2 car. 1 to fix the front wing and 1 to drive through for the penalty. Oh dear, oh dear. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. This fierce Fane's going to be running up past everyone, trying to dive into the pits. Oh my goodness. Being able to collect the car into the pit phases. It looks like Demi coming into the pits. For another broken front end plate. Baku claims another sacrifice. The front wings, the monsters are out. The front wing monsters. You've heard of the purple people eater, but have you heard of the end plate? I don't know an animal that starts with an E. The enigmatic end plate anteater. I don't know, man. It starts with an A, but it works. Oh. Dear, oh dear. And yet the only peer we have is Demi. Oh. Oh yes, an elephant. How could I forget? An elephant never forgets, but I have. Oh, as Demi files in P6 once this grid restarts on the medium tires. Azzy and Demi certainly going to the end on those medium compound tires. Kaiju and Leggy looking a bit of a stretch. But Leggy, I believe, was on the hards. Yes, Leggy is in P3 on for a podium, but certainly going to be up for a mountain to climb with Azzy and Demi behind and fighting. Very, very hungry for those podium positions, but who knows? Those Ferraris have to be seeing red, but this track is seeing red for sure, as we again have lost 6 drivers in this race. But it's going to be the red of the safety car that is going to be running away from the field. Once again, Shurex leads the field. Otto as well, both on their starting compound tires. So, the battle is on for both the race win and the podium. Shurex and Otto need to stop in this race. Leggy, Azzy, Kaiju, Demi, Fane all can go to the end of this race on the tires they're on. So, let the chaos begin. As Shurex leads the field, the gap starts to form. Leggy trying to get some momentum going, and that momentum has been had. But it's going to be the run into turn 1. Is Otto able to get close? Otto looking down that rear wing of Shurex, and we're going to be 2 wide and 2 abreast. We're going into turn 1, diving from Azzy into T1. Demi with a speeding in the pit lane as they dive into the pits yet again. Oh no, they had to, oh, what a horrible, horrible mess for them that they have. Oh, but Kai stealing in the P4. The podium is on. Azzy, Kai, and Leggy going to be the benefactors of Shurex and Otto pitting. And it's going to be the tight race. Azzy charging 3/10 back from Otto on brand new medium tires. As it's going to be Shurex leading Otto, followed by Azzy, Kai, Leggy, and then the rest of our group way in the back. So this is our race to go. But through the chaotic castle, what can happen? 1, 2, 3, and away we go. Through the castle section, Kai is flying high, and it's going to be deep into 10, and no, Kai has lost the rear again. Oh, the dusty circuit of Baku has claimed the victim of Kai once again. The rear end not wanting to comply. Leggy stepping up into P4 for what could possibly be P2 by the end of this race. But once again, Otto, Azzy, Surex in the battle for the lead. But Azzy closer than they need to dive into this DRS zone. It's going to be starting up in the next lap. Surex and Otto, all followed by Azzy within 1 second of a lap. And it's going to be running in 4/10 separating P2 and 3, possibly for the effective race lead. As that gap continues to close, those new medium tires just have so much grip that dirty air means nothing to Azzy. 2/10 to go. All of the ERS surely being dumped by Azzy. It's going to be a look to the inside of 3. Closing in tight, sending Otto wide, a good exit, and it's going to be possibly a dive into 4. No, Azzy falling back into line. Otto trying to run away as we have a possible crash in Sector 1. And it's going to be Fame going deep into Turn 2. But Azzy possibly with the dive into 7. Side by side, and it's going to be deep onto the brakes. And are we able to make it through? Keep it safe, guys. Turn 8 is not the place to be. Side by side. It's going to be filed out. Azzy able to make that drive. 1 second between Azzy and Surex. That ERS or DRS is going to clap. It's going to open up. But just look how much traction Azzy has over Surex. 19 laps. Old tires for Surex. Even though many of them were under the safety car, there are still several heat cycles that have gone through. Half a second in just Sector 3, and it's gonna be Azzy looking to take this pass for free on the main straight. All that DRS going to be dumped faster than a transformer explosion as Azzy's gonna be diving in tight, and Surex defending that inside. ERS not being used by Azzy, perhaps trying to mess up Surex's line. Surex early on the brakes, and it's going to be the move done for the lead of the race. Azzy now looking to stretch their legs. Kai looking to try to keep in touch, maybe get a podium in the final 6 laps of this race. But it is going to be Otto versus Surex. Demi with the fastest lap of the race on the softs. And this race has plenty to offer us. Leggy sneaking into the back of Kai's DRS window, maybe trying to stick with it, but remember, Leggy on very old tires, Kai on newer mediums. It looks like Kai's going to be able to run away, possibly having just caught past Leggy. Moving into the castle section one more time. We'll only see this view for 5 more laps as Otto pushing it hard. You can see the rear end complaining on that AlphaTauri. As Surex leading the final of these full race runners on the mediums. The gap is close to 0.3 of a second, and there's so much front end grip for Otto all the way up to the wall. And oh boy, is Otto able to get that traction? It appears he is. 0.4 of a second between these two. And it's going to be that DRS opening wide for Otto. And as the DRS boards come into sight, the line is now. The rear wing is open, and you can see the speed gaining. But both drivers diving into the pits. Surex and Otto knowing. Surex with a 5-second penalty! No! Oh, the pit lane claims another. The pit lane claims yet another. But it's going to be Kai and Leggy inheriting the podium positions. A strong but quiet race for Leggy, trying to just keep it together. Kai has had many times where they have nearly died, but had to bring it back. But 4 seconds for Leggy to hold on to it. 4 seconds over 5 laps. Is Leggy able to do it? The gap is opened up to 4.5. So we shall see Surex and Otto electing for the soft tires. There's going to be a big pace difference between the two, but 4.5 seconds. That's almost a second a lap. As Azzy is going to run run into the distance. 10 seconds to meet Kai. I don't think that's going to be a gap that can be closed. And oh my. The gap, no, down to 3 seconds. This could be Shirex on a charge, trying to find that last little bit of time. The podium could still be on for Shirex. Otto as well, if they can close up that final spell of time. Oh boy. That gap sits at 1.4 seconds. 1.4 seconds is what lies between Otto and a podium. Shirex certainly looking like that podium is theirs for the taking. But Otto, he's going to be hungry. He knows he has the pace on Shirex at times. It's just going to be a matter of how can he find that time. Leggy, that gap dropping to a minuscule 1 second, all the way down to 8/10. Oh, and that gap just falling and falling and falling. Certainly not much of a fight going to be put up here as Shirex gets that DRS open and into turn 3, deep under the brakes. So much more compliance from that soft rubber, being able to just pull that Alpine in. But oh dear, this could get spicy as Leggy is next to be overtaken by Otto. Otto, 0.2 of a second, looking, is he gonna pull out? It's going to be no, keeping it nice and tight, but this is a lot of time for Otto to lose. Leggy has been quite slow on those hard compound tires, and it is shown there as these tires have been strapped to the boots of Leggy for a very long time. Just look at that little bit of a slide coming from Leggy as Otto's going to try to steam on by, and it's going to be the drive coming out. But we look one more time at Kai and Shirex. The gap is going to continue to close 1 second, but only 4 laps to go. It's going to be a full second per lap with Kai on the mediums, but I'm not quite sure that gap's going to stay safe. But Shirex with the 5-second penalty, that could remain safe, but Otto is the benefactor of that time penalty, only 3 seconds back. And Otto has the same pace as Shirex. If Shirex catches Kai and tries to fight, that is certainly going to be them off of the podium and Otto onto it. But we see, as we wait for the results to come in, it is going to be the charge one more time from Shirex and Otto. Kai running away. Their times firmly going to be plastered on that relative time. Looking like it's going to be a 10th here and a 10th there, but that time is being lost everywhere. Oh my. But all of this could be stopped. All it's going to take is a late safety car. A late VSC is possibly a corner cutting penalty from Otto there, and they're going to have a Sector 3 is going to be popped in. Looks like it's going to be Fane under blue flags from Azzy. As he's making good pace through here. Fane, yes, doing as they should and pulling out of the way. It's going to be Demi charging onto the back of Leggy. The gap closing fast, but the gap closes even faster. Back up the order with Shirex as well. These gaps are minimizing to next to nothing. Shirex within 1 second. And this is going to be the last little bit that Shirex needs to find. Otto needs to stay in line in that 5-second buffer that he has for that podium position. Shirex, fastest lap of the race. Kai, certainly going to try to defend. There is only 3 laps to go, but there is 3 podium positions. And you need to finish in the top 3, Kai, with a little tap on the wall. That's not what we need to see. You need to finish in that top 3. But just remember that final podium position was always going to be up for grabs. And Kai, no! And, oh, Kai, hard into the wall, tapped in by Shirex, and Otto almost into the rear end. Oh, no, that's not what they needed. That could be Kai outside of a podium. 1 second behind Otto. Otto 3 seconds behind. That's 4.2 seconds. Truex could nab that last podium spot. Kai was looking so good for that final podium spot, but no, it has all come unraveled with the late move on Truex. Oh no. Oh my. And it appears Demi has gotten by Leggy at P5, going into the hands of the Ferrari team. Oh dear, oh dear. Here and here is Azzy dominating the race with a gap of almost 14 seconds. Here charging in. It's maybe diminishing to 13, but I believe Azzy is going to remain untouchable for the final 2 laps. It would require a rather large mistake from Azzy to not bring this race home, and Azzy not one known for their mistakes. So bulletproof as can be, but oh boy, after what I've seen today, nothing is certain but the chaos of Baku. Many of these drivers spread out. Not many battles left to go, so many of these drivers maybe filed into their final positions. Looks like Otto just trying to maintain that gap to Truex, as Azzy's getting a little bit of understeer coming through 6 into 7. A bit of compliance, getting a nice calm entry. Yes, it looks like Azzy's playing it rather safe, letting the gap come down for the rest of the field. Just trying to finish, and that's all they need to do. It's going to be 12.5 seconds to the car behind, and nothing is left to answer. Truex, yes, gaining a second a lap, but Truex is also unable to close that gap. 12 seconds in a lap it's not meant to be. It would require something magical. Not up to me, but Azzy would certainly, again, keeping it nice, calm, and collected. Maybe perhaps Truex pushing for that fastest lap of the race, because that gap to Otto, 9/10 in a lap, that would be quite a stretch as they stay on the same strategy. But maybe the DRS will open for Truex coming into turn 2 to 3 straight. That could help Truex's battle against Otto. It's only 1 second that's needed. Ooh, but that's not going to help. Getting maybe into the wall there on the exit, and it seems so as Otto closes the gap into the wall again. Unable to make do, and it stays outside of the 1 second gap to catch Bane. And unfortunately, that's not going to be the DRS, so this blue flag traffic is not going to benefit Truex. It's going to just be them having to pull out of the way, and yes, that is exactly what they do. In the final time through the castle section, the Ferrari avoids a Leclerc, making it through to turn 10 and down through 11 and 12, where the qualifying crash could have shaken their confidence, but yet they remain flat out in the 13, hard on the brakes, bringing it in to 14. The final corner that's going to matter, the strong exit onto the straight and the chicane, the only other obstacles in the way, and that obstacle is going to be mounted as Azzy is going to take it down the final straight in Azerbaijan and bring home the victory in the 2021 F1 Championship in Baku. Azzy is now your race winner, but we still have 2 cars to go. Truex trying to get that final run into the straight Otto within 1 second. That position is going to fall. Otto inheriting P2. Truex dropping to P3. Kai unable to keep that gap close enough with their unfortunate spin. And that's going to be still a very commendable P4 with the incidents that they had. Leggy, I think, inherited that P5 from Demi with a 5-second penalty. We'll have to see for sure, but oh my, what What a... I don't think I have a voice after that, but it's going to be the Ferrari win from Azzy. Jumping out onto the podium, certainly a bit of excitement for such a commanding lead, such a commanding win, as the podium ceremony shared by Otto and Steerex, as making that one-stop strategy work. It seemed in doubt, but they were able to bring those softs back in the end and close that gap. And in the end, I have to commend them for being able to bring home the silverware. Kai with P4, quite nice, as we'll jump into the results once they load here. Fortunately, it seems our game will not allow that, so that may be out of question, but we'll bring home our interviews in a second. Barely. We just bring home everyone else. Just need to pull in everyone in for our interviews. Oh my. So, as we're collecting everyone right now, just getting the last couple drivers in, we have everyone filing in. We'll bring everyone together, and yes, that's how it's going to be. All right, so I'm going to jump straight into it. Oh,
I'm buckets.
What a chaotic race.
Yeah, I'm guessing you sped in the pit lane. Sorry.
I'm a fucking idiot. 81 kph. Let's go.
Jumping into things, I'm going to start with you, Shirex, and work up our podium. Shirex, so interesting pit strategy from you, going for no stops through all three of our safety cars, avoiding the free pit stops. What was prompting you to do that, and what was your strategy under the helmet?
First stop, I had like 10% of my tires. I'm like, yeah, I can go one stop with the safety car. Second stop, I'm like, wait, no, this is bad, as he's behind me with hearts. I can't pit now. Third safety car, I'm just sitting there crying on my steering wheel, like, what the hell am I supposed to do now? If I drive into the pits, I can't go on softs, because 10 laps on them, no. Yeah, I destroyed my own race here. Quite literally.
Yeah, certainly a chaotic race. But you were able to also make that charge under the softs. I mean, what was going through your head when you came out of the pits and saw over a 5-second gap that you had to bring back, and on top of that had a 5-second penalty that you had to gap out past them once you were able to get into that podium position?
Well, honestly, I really didn't think coming out of the pits. I was just focused on the track. Mostly, I literally didn't speak for the last 7 laps of my stream. I'm just there like, okay, I'm gotta have to be fast now. So I tried pulling out the gap, which actually kind of worked, but then I got wing damage, so yeah.
Absolutely. Well, way to keep it together and bring home that P3. Bring home what was a chaotic race, but a well-deserved podium. Jumping over to Otto, congratulations on the P2, and you were in that battle for the top couple positions for the entire race. Perhaps maybe hampered a little bit by strategy, having to recover a full pit stop. It didn't seem too possible. But was your goal to just stick with Shirex, or were you trying to go for those overall honors?
Well, initially I had the same strategy as Shirex because I saw as well that I could make the one stop. But that third safety car definitely messed that up a little bit. So then I just followed Shirex when he went into the pits to stay with him and just hope I can catch him at the last second.
Yeah, and it seemed to work out with that 5-second penalty, of course. As well as the start of the race, we had a bit of chaos going in behind, but for the first half of that race, we were tightly locked into a battle with the top 5. Did you have any strategy going into that, as you were kind of a sandwich in the middle of that battle? Were you trying to just mind your time and keep someone behind, or were you trying to make your way up the field and perhaps try to run your own pace?
Yeah, I was definitely trying to run up the field and try to run my own pace, but I was thinking about my tires as well. So if I couldn't make that one stop happen, I'd definitely lose out a time.
Absolutely, and well, a well-deserved P2 to you. Hopefully we'll see you around next week and back in the interview booth as we jump over to Azzy. And what a commanding drive by the end of that race. I believe 12 and a half seconds by the end of it all. Pit strategy, of course, playing a big factor, but your pace was just absolutely on fire today.
Yeah, it was honestly quite an eventful race. There was just so many safety cars. Before the race, I did kind of think in my head the possibility of that happening, and the one stop being a massive reality here. So started it on the mediums, especially as we had a wet quali, which really was good. Which I don't know if you saw by the end where I crashed out. I just was a 10th up on purple and just pushed it a little bit too hard, but paid the price. And the strategy really just played into my hands there. I noticed everyone in front of me was still staying on those mediums for, I don't know, like 20 laps. That was insane. So credit to them for being able to stretch those tyres even that long. But after that first safety car and going on the hards, I thought, you know what, there's a possibility I could make it to the end. And when that third one hit, it was just a blessing, really, and just chucked on a set of mediums, just kept it clean, kept the consistent laps. I think I didn't dip out the 41s for like 6 laps straight, which was really nice to do. And just held it together, really. It's all I could do. A few crucial passes definitely throughout the race as well, especially I did auto turn 1 around the outside. That was hair, like you couldn't put a hair between us on that outside. It was a really nice one, but I think that move really is what set the strategy on fire today. And just be able to get that position on the track and to be able to work from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And also a race of mental resilience, both in the race, but for you particularly in qualifying with that big shock on your final lap. I mean, how were you able to bounce back, even though you had a good qualifying position, but just knowing that you had just that little bit more you could have pulled out of the car and unfortunately ended in that barrier?
Definitely, it was a bit of a kick to the teeth, definitely, but it was not a case of what the car did or what the weather was. It was a case of what I did. I pushed it too hard. I knew going into the corner, because I did lose about 2 tenths in the middle sector, that I had to make something special happen, and I thought, you know what, let me hold it flat through here. Didn't work out, but you know, it is what it is. That's racing. You know, we take those risks. We try and get that extra 10th however possible, and it just wasn't meant to be. So I know I'll bounce back in quali, definitely, with my little last lap antics where I get across the line with like 3 seconds remaining. So
yeah, absolutely, but still a great recovery and showing that mental resilience to the race. Congratulations again on the win, and thank you all guys for jumping into our interviews.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you very much as well. I'm gonna head out.
Yep, and so as we all write it to a close, the chaotic race of Baku comes and goes. Unfortunately, we were only able to get 7 drivers to finish, but those 7 drivers, exuding, whether it be by luck or skill, the ability to get to the end of the race through a track that threw everything at them, that threw rain and incidents, crashes galore, low grip, and everything more. But that was all it could give, as it was the 7 drivers who were able to make it to the end. Thank you all for coming out to our broadcast. Please, if you have not done so already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have our notifications, as well as these races happen every week. And now for the next 6 weeks, we have ACC races and iRacing as well that comes in here and there as well. Simufur on Twitter. Please give that a shout. But otherwise, thank you all for tuning into our stream, and have a wonderful night.